Gotcha.
All right. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This week we have a very special guest, astrophysicist, author, TV host, director of the Hayden Planetarium, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Right on. Before we get into your book, because I know that's what we want to talk about, I have one question to ask you. Is America's space program over?
No, it's just significantly slowed down to the point where I think uh, we used to look to the space program as a daily reminder of advances in innovation and the realization of dreams that we all had about the future. And that's just not the case right now. The space program is not serving that role because the pace at which it is unfolding, it falls well below anything that the rest we all need in order to feel like we're actually accomplishing something in space.
What is it that we need to accomplish in space?
Well, no, it's forget the details of what we would accomplish in space. The fact of going into space and advancing a space frontier requires that you innovate to do so. And innovation in science and technology is the engine of 21st century economies. And so America will just continue to slide economically without such a boost to our sense of what our the boost that an innovation economy would bring us. And what a healthy NASA does for us is not only innovate for its own accomplishments, it creates an innovation culture within the rest of the nation. And it's that culture in total that drives tomorrow's economies, and that's what's not going on right now. Jobs are going overseas. No one wants to become a scientist, and everyone is putting a little Band-Aid on each one of these problems, saying, oh, let's put tariffs and give tax incentives for the companies so they don't have to move their factory overseas. If you innovate, then you make things that require your creative innovation to construct, and other people haven't figured out how to do it yet. So you keep your jobs simply because you're consistently innovating. All the rest of these symptoms are signs of a very deep economic failure of our capacity to dream.
So how do we fix this?
Double NASA's budget. We're done.
That's it? Just double it and then we're good?
Double it. Then we can go to NASA. We can go to Mars in a big way. We can create a whole slew of launch vehicles, go back to the moon, put colonies on the moon if you want to do that. Go stop that asteroid that's headed our way. Go visit the moons of Mars. Visit the famous Lagrangian points where all the forces of revolution and of gravity balance, so that you can build huge structures there. Whatever are your needs, whatever are your requirements, you just do it because it will advance a frontier. The key understanding here is that those activities advance frontiers. And anytime you advance frontiers, you issue patents, you issue product, you create new ways of doing things that drive an economy. So for science, we might want to go to Mars with robots, or probably more with robots than with people. We might want to go to the moon for geopolitical reasons. We might want to go stop the asteroid because none of us wants to go extinct. We might have some other, you might want to go to some other destination for tourist reasons. You might want to mine the moon. All of this will be accessible to us if space becomes our backyard rather than a cherry-picked set of destinations.
As a scientist, and you just brought up mining the moon. Like, one of the things I think we do here in America is we just try to make money, and it's mining for stuff and how do we power things. Would you be okay with us going to the moon and just drilling into it and trying to do what we've done to Earth?
Well, we're doing that to Earth, so why should I believe that human conduct would be any different in space? I'm just being practical.
Right.
I'm not even voting one way or another. I'm saying It's like people saying, "Oh, we need to be peaceful in space." Yeah. Excuse me, you're not peaceful here on Earth. What? Are you going to use space as an excuse to not kill each other? Why not use whatever excuse you need to not kill each other here and now? We somehow failed to do that for the past 50 millennia of our species. So I don't understand that it's a naive expectation that human conduct will somehow be different in space once people start landing places and setting up colonies and have huge space assets. It's naive to think that we would behave any differently as a species in space than we do here on Earth. We mine the Earth. What do we
Yeah.
not mine the moon? Nobody lives on the moon. We live on Earth and we're mining the Earth. So I don't understand what the resistance is.
What?
And the universe has no shortage of resources. And so the urge to make money, of course, we live in America in a capitalist society. That's the construct. That's what we're all sort of bought into. If you don't like capitalism, there are many places to live where making money is not the primary driver. Although I don't know where those places are. Even in China, they're making a whole lot of money.
Right.
And in spite of the socialist construct of in spite of their cultural socialism, they're fiscally capitalist. So it seems. So I don't. Space is just another place for humans to hang out and behave the same way there that we're behaving here.
What do you see? How far out do you see people actually being able to go? Is it? Okay, let's just get right into your book. I got it. I read it. Space Chronicles. Really good read, by the way. I enjoyed it. Before we talk about it, I just want to preface that by saying, when I was little, first I wanted to be a giraffe, and second I wanted to be an astronomer, and then I went to public school, and all of that went away, and it just became like, oh, just finish school. In high school, I wanted to take biology, and they told me take family living, which is basically home ec, because they felt like I couldn't do it or whatever. And I read this book, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have a hard time really understanding it. Really easy read. You make things really easy to understand. I enjoyed it a lot. How far can we go, like, realistically into space? Because from what I gathered, it seemed as if things are really far away. Like, just a regular person, I had no idea, I didn't really realize that when we put people into space right now, they don't go very far.
That's correct. In fact, if you took Earth and shrunk it down to the size of a schoolroom globe, I have some globes behind me back there. See, those are schoolroom globes. Then on that scale, Mars is a mile away. The moon is 30 feet away. And the space station and space shuttles are 3/8 of an inch above Earth's surface.
Yeah, that fascinates me.
Right. So when NASA says we're going into space, I don't, no, we're just hanging out above Earth's atmosphere. We provisionally call that space, but you really want to go someplace, you got to go pick a destination and let the rockets have you exceed the escape velocity of Earth so that you can actually travel places.
So how possible is that? Like, is it near future, or are we talking this is way future?
Let me get back to your lost ambitions for having gone to public school. I too went to public school my entire life, K through 12, and I did not lose my ambition, and that was because my ambition was set external to the forces operating within the school. When you have an ambitious space program unfolding writ large on the daily newspapers, and you're in school, that's what gets your attention, not the quality of the teacher that you have. Your ambitions are set by a cultural directive that we are all exploring space and we're all innovating. You don't distract yourself by the fact that one teacher might be better or worse than another. There's a greater force operating on your ambitions. And that's the force that NASA represents.
Yeah, when, growing up, the only things I remember about space are the space shuttles that crashed. During school, we didn't even hear about, during my generation.
No, there's a reason why. Because space shuttle missions did not advance space frontiers. So there's no reason for the press to headline one space shuttle mission versus another unless there was a disaster. Had one space shuttle been doing something more than the previous one did, go to higher heights, go to an interesting destination, they don't have the fuel designed to leave low Earth orbit. But imagine if they did, then every next mission would be a headline, and the deaths would be steps along the way to greater discoveries, rather than this pall that exists weighing down everybody's mood and ambition while you return to boldly going where hundreds have gone before.
Is that a failure of NASA?
It's a failure of the advance of a space frontier. Yes. It's not a failure of NASA in the sense that NASA is told what to do by the government, by us, by our elected officials. So you don't blame NASA, you blame us.
Okay.
We stopped going to the moon. Russia said they weren't going to go to the moon, so we just stopped. Well, we went to the moon because we were at war, not because of economic drivers or because we like being ambitious. That mattered to those engaged in it, but the people who wrote the checks are not dissuaded by simple arguments of it's in our DNA or it's what we do or it's a human thing. We were at war, and that was sufficient to dislodge $100 billion of tax money to get us to the moon.
So to get people back on track, that gets right back to the doubling of the NASA budget.
Yeah, you double it. That's a nice round number, a penny on your tax dollar. That's a very nice round number. It would basically do anything we need to do and fulfill all of the many demands we as a nation have placed on NASA. We want NASA to monitor Earth, even though that's not a space frontier. We want NASA to do all these space things. Okay. Really, I think NASA should be advancing a frontier. That's just, and only that. But that's just my opinion. NASA has other congressionally directed activities in its portfolio. But if you wanted to do it all and do it in a grand way, the budget is insufficient. And so when you go to a penny on a dollar rather than a half a penny on a dollar, it's an investment. So there's no discussion, in this economic time we can't afford it. Of course you can afford it. It's an investment. The penny now brings 10 pennies later. It's an investment. That's what investment means. Even in tough economic times, you put in a little bit, you get more later. So the people who say, we need to spend money on Earth, we are spending money on Earth. In fact, social programs and education, we spend 50 times more money on social programs and on education than we do on NASA here on Earth. So we are spending money on Earth.
It's crazy. Like I said, I thought I would just give you a few facts of what I thought I learned out of your book, and you can tell me if I'm right. The movie industry has it all wrong.
That's the what?
The movie industry has it all wrong.
They get it wrong even when they claim they get it right. Now, those that get it wrong, when there's no pretense of them getting it right, I don't care about those. It's when they assert they're getting it right and they get it wrong, then we're going to have to talk.
America isn't always first at accomplishing things.
It was hardly ever first at accomplishing things. The entire space race, practically every metric of space advance was won by the Russians. The first satellite, the first animal in orbit, the first human in orbit, the first female in orbit, first black person in orbit, the first space station, the first space docking. This goes on and on and on. Everything we did was reacting. Everything we did. Everything we accomplished was in reaction to something Russia did first, Soviet Union did first, or that they said they were going to do. So it's another delusion that we carry with us in our memory of that period. Along with Kennedy had charisma, and that's why we went to the moon. That is delusional. No, he did have charisma. That's not why we went to the moon.
It's no small feat to launch something into space.
It should be a small feat. The problem is it still isn't.
And I guess lastly, one of the things that blew my mind was how heavy the space shuttle was before it leaves Earth.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember the number, but it's up there.
Millions of pounds, billions of pounds,
yeah.
like that, right?
No, not billions. I mean, the shuttle plus all of the fuel. There's a famous equation called the rocket equation, discovered by a Russian, by the way, in the early part of the 20th century, which could have been derived much earlier because it uses simple calculus, like Calculus 101, to get this formula. But no one had the occasion to think to do it until rockets became real. And it's an equation that tells you how big your fuel tank must be to carry a payload of a given size. So every sort of next ounce of payload requires that much more fuel to put to get it into orbit, because now you need more fuel just to get the fuel you haven't burned yet into orbit so that you can then burn it. Right? So in other words, the fuel you need to burn to get the incremental ounce of payload into orbit requires fuel to get the fuel to a point where you can then burn that fuel to get your payload in orbit. So you need fuel to get fuel to where you need to burn the fuel. That's why the Saturn V rocket, 32 stories tall, Astronauts occupied the tiniest little part at the top, and all the rest was fuel. That's the cost. So what you really need are filling stations throughout space. Then you don't have to carry all your fuel with you that you ever needed. When I drive from New York to LA, I don't carry a tanker behind me of gas. I stop at the Quick Mart and refill.
Is the object then to figure out a way to come up with a fuel that's like really good?
No,
Like
well, so, yeah, but even if you have perfect fuel, which would be matter antimatter annihilators, even if you have perfect fuel, it would still take you 100,000 years to cross the galaxy. It would still take you years and years and years to get to the nearest star. So the good thing about fuel is for short distances, you don't have to drift to your destination. Right now, we drift to the moon, it takes 3 days. We drift to Mars, it takes 9 months. If you have good fuel source and you use them, you can get to Mars in a month. You'd feel an acceleration along the way. You wouldn't be drifting there. You'd feel an acceleration. Well, that's good. So that way you can sort of orient yourself, and that acceleration of the rockets simulates gravity. Then you don't have the bone loss problem. Then you get to Mars really quickly, and you're not drifting while solar flares come and fry your DNA. So a lot gets accomplished by getting to destinations faster rather than slower.
Interesting. You care to answer a few questions that I got from the internet?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
These are from the internet, so bear with me. First one: Will the sun?
So you're not accountable, is what you're saying. You're not accountable.
No, I'm not accountable for any of these three. I'll give you three. Will the sun ever come close enough to the Earth to melt it like a grilled cheese?
Oh yeah, of course. But it's not the sun coming close to Earth; it's the sun's surface expanding. So yes, the surface of the sun is getting closer, but the center of the sun is not. It's just the sun will get really, really, really huge, and in 5 billion years, its outer layers will engulf the entire orbit of the Earth and will be a charred cinder. With a decaying orbit deep within.
So there is an end of the world. There's
a definite end of the world unless we figure out how to planet hop to planets that are farther away from the ever-expanding outer shell of the sun.
Nice. Are unicorns overrated?
No, I love unicorns. I think they're great, and I think they're magic in the way dragons are magic, in the way werewolves are magic. These are creatures that exist in our joys, they exist in our fears, and they serve as a literary tool for us to express our joys and our fears. And so I think they have a fundamental part of of human culture. And the more of them, the better.
Wow, you were too cool, bro. That was a good answer. Last one, man. Too cool. Goosebumps, man. In a world where technology has become so important to the consumer, what can we do to inspire young children with consumer technology to interest them in math and science so they'll want to build technology and get us all start dreaming again?
You double NASA's budget.
That's the thing, right?
You keep trying to put a Band-Aid on these little problems, all right? They're looking at their iPhone for too long when they should be looking up, right? And so if you go into space in a big way, it makes headlines every day, weekly, as a minimum. But you have to advance a frontier for that to make headlines. Otherwise, it gets boring, like the space shuttle. So you advance a frontier. Kids in school, one is looking down at the iPod or is looking at their latest episode of Jersey Shore, but then they keep hearing this thing, oh, we might have found life on Mars. Oh, we need engineers to build a new aerospace engineer to navigate the rarefied atmosphere of the planet. And so I say, wow, actually, that's what I want to do, not this. I put down the iPhone, and you've got me. I'm sold. I want to become an engineer. I want to become a scientist. I want to learn the math, because the math is the language of the universe. And you want to commune with the cosmos, you learn math. You want to commune with the Chinese, you learn Chinese. You want to chat with the Spanish, you learn Spanish. The cosmos, that takes math. And so you create a dream state that is so seductive that people turn off their reality TV, and people, not everyone is going to turn off, and you're not going to get everybody this way. I just need enough to be a tipping point in the culture of everyone embracing and caring about these as our future, as the future we dreamt that we now want to bring into the present by making it happen.
Very cool. I'm sure that person's going to love that answer. Um, Before I let you go, just a couple more things. Reading your book, you point out a lot. I know it's right, stuff that you've written. It's kind of like a compilation of things that you've done. But
It's every thought I've ever had. It's every thought I've ever had about our past, present, and future in space.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
Yeah. I noticed that there's this thing about like where I don't know if you don't like ignorance or if you find amusement in ignorance, or where people do like say things that just don't make sense. How do you feel about that?
Oh, okay. Don't misunderstand me.
Okay.
I'm an educator, and educators thrive in the presence of people who have ignorance within them because they're come to you to learn. So ignorance is, it carries baggage today because, you're ignorant. Really, it just means you don't know something. I don't have an issue with people who don't know things. I'm an educator. Bring it on. Mm-hmm. I have an issue with people who don't know things but think they do. That's the problem here.
Uh-huh.
Okay? To be ignorant and don't even know you're ignorant and make decisions based on your belief that you know something. That's dangerous. And when you start getting elected officials with fingers on buttons that have capacity to wield resources and funding and geopolitics, and they think they're on top of some subject and they're not, that is a combustible mixture, recipe for disaster. And I have no tolerance for ignorant people who think they know something.
I agree.
There's an old saying. I don't know if it's Hindu, but I just know the English translation of it. And it goes something like this. He who knows not and knows not he knows not is a fool. Shun him. He who knows and knows not he knows is asleep. Awaken him. He who knows not and knows he knows not is hungry. Feed him. But he who knows and knows he knows is wise. Follow him.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One last thing. In your book, you talk about a centrifuge and the forces that, and basically bring up the amusement ride. One of my favorite rides, the Gravitron, was what it was called in my neck of the woods. And you talk about, there's a little comment where you talk about if you were to vomit. My thing that when I was on this, when I used to write this, is the one thing that used to pop in my head all the time writing this thing, is it possible, if all that force is on your body holding you against the wall, if you are looking straight ahead, is it possible to actually vomit? Or does the force keep the vomit in your mouth?
Right. Okay, so what will happen is if you don't turn your head, so what we're talking about is a spinning device where you get pinned to the wall from the centrifugal forces, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the tendency of your body to want to actually just fly off at a tangent. And if the back wall behind you wasn't there, that's exactly what you would do. So you're feeling that tendency, and it manifests itself in what we call the centrifugal force, which is really it's actually a centripetal force. If you take physics, it's important that you make that distinction. But colloquially, we all know what we mean when we say centrifugal force. So it spins up, you get pinned against the back. And all I said in that chapter, because the book contains chapters on basic understanding of orbits and propulsion and motion, that sort of thing. So if you feel nausea and you want to throw up, fluid moving vertically within you is not moving against the centrifugal force. So it can easily get to the back of your throat. Now it has to come out. Okay? So now it's just a contest of forces. The forces of the reverse peristalsis, if I remember that's what it's called, the contraction of your muscles to get food out of your stomach and out of your mouth. That's a force. You can measure that force. Versus the centrifugal force coming back in. I am sure there's a point where if you sped up fast enough, you would not be able to throw up. The vomit would just stay at the back of your throat. And you'd probably suffocate because it would get in your lungs and things. So whenever you have to throw up, turn your face to the side, and then the throat will go up at a tangent, and it'll hit all. Now, in my day, it wasn't called the Gravitron. It was called something else, but it was open to the air. And so I think stuff fell out of people's pockets, and maybe when they threw up, it went in people's hair. But now the gravitron, as I think, is a completely enclosed.
Yeah, it's like a spaceship.
Yeah, so whatever comes out of you stays inside the spaceship.
Oh. Right on. That was my first thought when I was reading it, because every time I'd be on it, one of my favorite ones, used to like to try to go upside down and stuff like that in there.
Right.
But one of my thoughts all the time was like, oh, what happens when if that's how possible? Okay. So if people want to find your book, Space Chronicles, Facing the Final Ultimate Frontier, where can they get this?
On my website, which you just Google Neil Tyson, it should be the top hit. If not, it's the second hit. You Google that, and there's an icon of the book on the front page. You click on it. You can read some reviews, just in case you want to be really sure before you go get it. And then if you like what you read about it, then you can click on. There's a button there that takes you straight to Amazon, or straight to whatever's your favorite merchant to then go buy it. And we just go straight to Amazon. But yeah, it's available, and it should be in bookstores. And it got a nice write-up in the Library Journal, which librarians read. So if you don't want to pay for it, that's fine. Just find it in a library. I think it retails for like $25, but Amazon's been selling for like $15, $16, $17. So I think that's a good price. There's a lot in there. I also included the original Space Act that created NASA. That's in the appendix. There's a whole appendix in this thing, just to anchor the bottom side of this, so you know what we're talking about here. So I think of the book not only as, I'm a little biased here when I say it might be a fun read for you, but it's also a resource to get to the bottom of what is this space culture that we have wrought in the 20th century, and what do we need to do to make it thrive in the 21st.
Yeah, it's very interesting how you did that in the end. I really like that part. It made you feel like you're now part of it. Speaking of libraries, I'm going to go donate the book to my local library. That's how I do it.
Excellent. That's very normal to do.
I do that. It was a really good book, really good read. Everybody out there should read it. One of the parts of this book, you put your tweets in there. You tweet a lot, yeah?
Well, no, the tweet maniacs do 3, 4, 5, 10 a day. I tweet maybe 10 a week, unless the Twitterverse descends upon me. And I must textify. I think that was one of my tweets recently.
That's funny.
When I feel in a textifying mode, as I did on St. Patrick's Day, I had like 10 tweets in a row on the cosmic perspective on the color green. And for example, there are no green stars in the universe, and there's astrophysical conspiracy to prevent that. But yeah, I tweet at Neil Tyson, NeilTyson, and they're mostly cosmic brain droppings. Don't look to me for the latest news. It's just thoughts I have, random thoughts that I share. And so check it out if you're interested. I'd be happy to have you as a follower.
Yeah, go out there and follow him. I do. It's interesting stuff. You are a cool dude, man. What is it about you that makes you cooler than other scientists? Like, most dudes, I married up. I married a historian, and I'm around like academics a lot. Like dinner parties are like, with a lot of people talking about stuff that goes beyond me, and I find myself, sort of drifting off in a lot of conversations. Everybody knows it. I'm the drifter in the
room. Question: You say you've married up, but does your partner say he married down?
No, she not in front of me. In front of me, she tells me I'm the smartest person she's ever met, but I tell her she's a liar. But because she's mine. Anyways, there's something about you that makes you very easy to talk to, and what do you account that to?
Well, thanks for that comment, and I think is it anything more than just being socialized? I mean, I don't think so, and I don't think it's more than that. I think I do pay attention to people's eyebrows and whether they're listening, and look, if I can contemplate the universe, I can contemplate someone's facial expressions. And I try to do that with my kids when I was raising them. I would get a movie that required a lot of acting rather than action, a lot of emoting, a lot of interpersonal relationships, and I'd turn down the sound, and I'd get them to tell me what they thought was going on in the scene. And that would require that if you have good actors doing it, you would then read facial expressions and body language and which ways the person's body turned. Are they interested romantically in the other person, or are they just a friend? Is there, so you can read what is a person is thinking and what they're feeling, and then you cue to that in the conversation. Then the conversation is much more meaningful. Otherwise, you're just lecturing. If you're going to lecture, well, go back to your college classroom and face the chalkboard and start writing, because that's all you're doing. You're not actually communicating. You're lecturing. You're putting it up there, and they either get it or they don't. But I feel more deeply about whether the person is getting what I'm saying. And that requires some level of socialization, and I include within that awareness of pop culture. I mean, I watch pop TV shows not because I like Snooki, but because other people are watching it, and I like knowing what's influencing their mind, their thoughts, their valuation of what matters in life. And if I don't have a clue to that thought process in their head, I have no access to their mind, their insight, their joys, their challenges, their struggles for what it is they need to learn. So I invest some effort in that. And I think it pays off in the sense that people feel like I'm communicating on a deep level. And that's the highest compliment that I can receive. And I accept the very question that you asked as a very high compliment, and I thank you for that.
Thank you for being that way, because really, without voices like yours, I think your voices like yours are going to help achieve what I guess you and we should be achieving as a society, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no
thank
problem.
You. What a confidence.
The book is Space Chronicles. Go out and get it. It's good stuff. Is there anything else you want to say to the world before I let you go?
You had a lot of good questions, and I'm glad you had some from the internet too, so that's good.
Right on. Well, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you again.
Hey, before I let you go,
do
you want to cut a little bumper for my show? Like one of those?
I'd be happy to. What should I say?
The show's called Beneath Everything with Ronnie Rucker. So you can say whatever you want to say. Feel free.
Okay. You've been watching and listening to Beneath Everything with Ronnie Rucker. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, signing off.
Nice, dude. That was good, man. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
You might not be signing off with my comments, so let me give it to you again.
Okay, here we go.
You've been watching and listening to Beneath Everything with Ronnie Rucker. I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, and as always, keep looking up.
Love it, love it. You're good, man.
That's the one you use. Okay.
That's the one. Thank you so much. Like, really, it's been an honor having you on, and I appreciate it. And
we need to do. Go for it.
I'll email your assistant when it goes up and all that stuff.
Excellent. All right.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.